not what you were thinking. Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. Good afternoon, everybody. It is good to take a break once in a while. And of course, I'm getting prepared for something monumental. It's huge. I cannot explain, but I will. Actually, I will. I will explain my excitement, not only to have my next guest on, but as you guessed it, I will be attending the 2017 ESPY Awards at the Microsoft Theater on your local ABC station at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific for those that are on the East and West Coast. Make sure you tune in. I'll be reporting live from SB Nation Radio and for SB Nation as a whole. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show. Today is 7/10/2017, and I appreciate your hour. I appreciate the time. Yes, I said an hour. I gave a segue into the show. What do you know about that? Look, the ESPYs gives us a real true foundation of understanding from an athletic standpoint what it takes to get to the next level, and why they're being celebrated is, well, relatively obvious. You have so many women and men in the sports industry that have made a name for themselves in the spotlight, under many spotlights, whether it's a basketball arena, football stadium, tennis court, ice hockey rink, and an NCAA basketball court. Now, these guys and gals have gone on to the next level in their respective careers. And some of the time, when you look at where they started from, obviously you don't get paid in the NCAA, so at least that's what we're aware of. And secondly, what happens with the money that they acquire during signing huge contracts, whether it's multi-billion, multi-million, whatever that is, that money gets, well, hopefully put away. Idealistically, that's what we're looking for, is for money to be saved to benefit themselves. And this topic is something that I've discussed here on the show many, many times. And I think about this and I really try to get a grasp on it. How can 58% of former sports athletes that leave their respective sport, whatever that is, end up being broke? On the street, sleeping on cousins' couches, their family members, housed maybe somewhere in a spare bedroom if they're fortunate enough, but find themselves really down and out. And I try to wrap my head around it, and as many times as I try, I never really can get the answer. But the gentleman I have on the show today not only has the answer, but I think it's a long-term solution to a long-term problem. Anyway, welcome my next guest. This is part 1 of 3 series, maybe 4, depending on what type of information we can get out to everybody. Anyway, welcome a very successful businessman. He does a lot in finance, a lot in adult education. He does a lot in media, public services. This gentleman has been known to do a variety of things. As a matter of fact, I was speaking to some of his constituents in regards to the billionaire lifestyle. I thought to myself, well, what is that exactly? Anyway, the head of it all is Gordon Bizar. No, it's not that bizarre, but maybe it is. Welcome, Gordon, to the show. How are you? Thanks for coming on.
Well, Rudy, I don't know when I've ever had a more exciting introduction.
That's what it's about.
So thank you for that. I really like it. But, well, the one thing I've noticed when you and I have talked just briefly in the past is we kind of share this passion of wanting to help other people, wanting to provide value to other people, and especially where they're taken advantage of because there's something that they don't know, or there's something that if they knew it, their whole lives would be different. And that's really true of professional athletes. And along the lines of the question that you asked, which is why do they get to this point where so many of them are broke after such successful careers, and very quickly after those careers are over? How does that even happen? And I'm going to take you through the path that a lot of these athletes take that give you the insight as to exactly why that happens. First of all, it's a very high percentage of professional athletes that come from relatively poor, financially poor upbringings. They don't have a knowledge of money, an understanding of money. They don't know what it really is. But yet they have phenomenal athletic skill sets. So somewhere in high school or college, these things are clearly identified. And all of a sudden, the person who has been poor all of their lives and who's made great sacrifice to improve themselves and to be really, really excellent in their sport, all of a sudden finds themselves signing a contract for, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. And all of a sudden, their ink is no sooner dry on the contract than they've got literally hundreds of new friends. And their buddies and family who have followed them along that pathway have had this idea that, gee, this guy's going to really make it rich here, and I want to get along with that and be a part of that, and perhaps have some share in that. And so what happens is the gentleman or the gal who has no understanding of money has a friend or a family member who knows nothing about money either, who is now their financial advisor, is now helping them make their financial decisions. And so they don't end up with really good resources to rely on. They're focused on their sport. And the next thing you know, a lot of that money is either misinvested, stolen from them, otherwise misspent because of their own bad spending habits, because they don't know what to do with that money that will help make more money. They only know that they want the car, they want the boat, they want the bling, they want the whatever it is. Money goes out the door, and with all the things that I just mentioned, it shouldn't come to any great surprise that within a few years after they stop earning the money, it's all gone, because they haven't focused on those things really necessary to secure that money, protect it, and place it in a place where it will continue to grow. Also, these folks are experts in their sport, but what they're not an expert in is how do they take the intellectual property that inures to them because of their celebrityhood, and how do they monetize that? They don't have any idea how to do that. They don't have any idea how to build a fan club, how to take that fan club and provide intellectual property that creates income from that fan base, how to get endorsements that a company can make money by the affiliation that they have and the use of their celebrityhood as an endorsement, how to create joint ventures with business people who can take their name and recognition and hero status and help monetize that for them in some form of a partnership or joint venture. These are things we know well. And so I don't want this to be an ongoing monologue here, so I'm going to just draw this to put a bow on this. But basically what we are doing in Billionaire Lifestyles is helping these athletes to create the resources that they need from the very earliest portions of their career so that they're protected, so that their money is organized and protected and grows in a way that makes sense by people who know how to make money with money, how we help them develop out their intellectual property, how we help them manage that intellectual property so that it goes on to produce not only great income for them, but wealth, and then how we help them once they are finished with their careers. Because, as you know, people in sports don't have till they're 90 to make money. Okay, they're going to do it from the ages of late teens into perhaps their early 30s, and after that, they've got to have a post-career. So a lot of them get to that post-career point, don't have any idea what they're going to do, and they get depressed. Life is very tough for them because they don't know what to do next. So we'll be working with them all that time so that when their post-career time comes, we've helped them buy a company, we've helped them buy a business, we've helped them identify partnerships that they can engage in that will allow them to monetize their hero status and celebrityhood, so that we work with them through every aspect of their career to solve the very predictable issues that they're all going to come in contact with and have to face. So that's the Billionaire Lifestyle Stories as it pertains to pro athletes. And I know you're going to have 1,000 questions and 1,000 comments, so I'll give the floor back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But no, you know what? There is a lot of answers, but I think one of the more commonly found questions is what do these guys do once they sign these big contracts? Is there a financial individual that they've already pre-designated? Because 90% of the time, players that enter their respective sport, NBA, WNBA, NHL, NFL find themselves signing those checks, but ultimately cashing them a lot sooner than they make them. You're talking about the ability for them to be informed and educated. I call it learning while you're earning. Not only are you learning your craft, but you're learning the ability to make the right decisions based on, and look, I'll be honest with you, I've spoken to a ton of athletes, and some of them are doing relatively well. Merrill Hodge is one of them. Max Starks is doing good things. There's Jerome Bettis. We were talking about him offline on how he has the Wheels on the Bus Foundation, both in Detroit and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Look, he's doing a lot of great things, but not all athletes have the mindset to put them ahead of the game. And I mean ahead of the game is in, and the interpretation can be when they exit the NFL, their mind in the game of life is where they need to be headed to. Why are these players not being educated? Is it a collegiate system? Is it a genetic situation? Is there something that they weren't either shown or taught, or do they learn those bad spending habits from their parents as they become older? Because you, as you stated, they deal with it in their teenage time frame. They deal with the early adulthood, enter their 30s. Is it a mindset? What drives these gentlemen to enter the NFL, exiting college? Now, unless you're a business major, you're accounting or business management, you have an idea. But for those that are not, that just want to get their requirements not based on anything from a financial standpoint, which a lot do. You know that as well as I do, Gordon, that a lot of these young men will enter the NFL and even the NBA. Case in point, Lonzo Ball took one sophomore year at UCLA. Now, in a situation, the NBA is he has to play the best to his ability, and if he doesn't, he does not have a backup plan. There's no degree to help support him. What's the situation, and why do guys like Magic Johnson, guys like Jerome Bettis and Merrill Hodge, why do those guys have such an edge in a post-NFL or post-sports career than these guys that are exiting the NFL early on, who become financially strapped when it comes to receiving Social Security now that they're in their 50s?
In some cases, the reason that they succeed is because of innate ability and a natural awareness that they might have. It's either built into the genetics or it's built somewhere into the experiences they've had getting to there. But those people are very, very few. The other folks that it happens to where they're successful, a lot of it's attributable, frankly, to luck. It's who they ran into and when they ran into them. Let's go actually look at an actual pathway to their early years in sports. Okay, again, they're coming up through high school and into college. They have friends from the neighborhood. Their friends are the people that they know. Those folks are not educated in finance either. And at some point, they develop a relationship where Johnny is going to be Harry's business manager, or he's going to handle his money, help him handle his money. Okay, and when they're young guys, just nothing but friends. Everybody's intentions are good, but the minute the dollars really start coming in, there's this natural feature that people have, which is called greed. And I don't want to make greed the enemy, because it's just innate in all of us. We all have a piece of that. And so greed starts to become bigger. And so the people who are there to help you all of a sudden see, well, he's making so much money, he won't miss this. I can do this and it'll be okay for me. It happens. And so that grows. And so what happens is money starts disappearing. Money starts getting mismanaged. Money starts happening not only because the person might be greedy, but just because they don't know. They came from the same neighborhood. They don't have the experience either. But yet they're trusted by their friend because their friend has been a good friend to them for a long period of time. In business and in money, the first lesson everyone needs to know is you don't have any friends. Okay, and the reason for it is at the end, self-interest always materializes. So you need to have your relationships with a system, where there's a system in place that monitors and polices everyone's participation in the system, so that people can't handle or can't exercise that greed because it will become known and it'll be stopped immediately through the system. Okay, so that's the very first thing that a person really has to understand about building their wealth, is they don't have friends when it comes to money. And whether it's even family members have their own agenda for the money that they're making. And a lot of times, even that family member's goodwill is misplaced. An example, the gentleman wants to say, look, my mom really sacrificed for me. I'm going to buy her a house. Okay? Well, there's lots of ways to get your mom a house without buying it. And leasing it until you have more money so that you can now provide your mom with a much better house now that you've had a chance to build your wealth and make more money. In other words, there's a sense of timing and a sense of method that should be applied in the era of good management of your money so that your money can work for you and build for you. So these are the type of things that we try to bring to that athlete, and we do it within a system that has checks and balances that does not allow anyone's greed to get out in front of the system. Now, I didn't say we make greed disappear. We don't. We just understand it, we respect it, we make sure that there's a system that doesn't allow it to become a factor or a significant factor in how people's money is managed and handled. And part of that we do by engaging in a process of education. All right, now we're going to educate people. What is money? How does it work? What should you do with it in order to make more money? What's the real value of money? How is it that money should be managed? We're going to educate them on all that now. Why doesn't somebody along the way educate them to that without us? Very simple. It's called control. Let's say I'm a money manager and I see that this person's going to make a lot of money. My agenda very well can be, this is a meal ticket for me. As long as I'm managing this person, I'm going to be getting a piece of that money for me. Okay, and so what happens is very simply, that's their agenda. So the money is managed and controlled in a way where that person has that control, and they keep that control as a way of earning more money off of their income for themselves. So that person doesn't have any interest in educating them because they don't want them to learn about the money. They don't want them to learn how the money should be properly managed because that would interfere with their agenda. And so that is a big part of what happens. So a lot of times you end up with somebody who doesn't have the same agenda of managing money as you do. They have an agenda of their own. And believe me, their own agenda is usually going to get taken care of first. One of the things that we do in building rapport with the athletes that we work with is we have a policy at our organization that we don't make money on people. We make money with them. We make money by bringing value to them and then sharing the value that we added to what it is that they have. So, for example, when we enroll people into the program, there's no front-end cost, because if we had a front-end cost, we haven't done anything yet. We haven't created any value for them yet. So we have an array of services that we will provide for them immediately that help them save taxes, that help them stabilize and secure their money, that help them to decrease their costs of getting that money managed and handled for them properly. So if they have to write checks, if they have to, all that stuff, it all gets done for them, but done in a much more cost-effective way than it is now. And so by the time you look at all the services that we provide to them at this very front end, we create them enough savings in taxes and on things that we do for them, that savings alone easily pays for all of the other services that they need, so that they're getting value from us and that they're never having to write us a check except from the money that we actually created for them that's there because we helped them either earn it or save it. So very early in the process, they'll come into our intellectual property service, which will now help them create a fan base, create products and services that can be sold to their fan base that are saleable because it comes with their endorsement, their branding. So we'll help brand them. So that's income that we create. And yes, we get a share of that, but they don't have to pay us. We just create income that pays them. We create endorsements for them. We do all of these things that help them earn money. we help them to identify businesses that are in their community. I mean, think about this. You came up through high school. You came up through college. You are a hero in your town. Everybody from your hometown followed you through high school. They came to your games. They watched you excel. They watched you go to college and excel there. They watched you sign into the pros. They follow you. In your hometown, you have a hero status that you will unlikely ever have anywhere else. And that can be monetized by people who know how to do that. So that first thing we're going to do is to create that process of monetizing that heroship and celebrityhood, create money, and then from that money, we're going to create new and more ways to help you. But it won't be because you wrote us a check. It's going to be because we shared our knowledge with your sacrifice and sports skills that have enabled us together to make money where without you, we would not be making money there. Without us, you would not be making money there. But together, we created a way that we make money together. So that's our philosophy, and that's how we approach it.
A lot of good information. I don't know that you'll find a lot of athletes who are informed about any of this. 9 times out of 10, guys who get into the NFL, NBA, don't really have the thought process, well, now that I've received all of these checks, who do I go to? What is my go-to? What is my outlet? How do I find respected, trusted people? You're talking about friends, family members, people that you haven't spoken to, your mother's brothers, cousins, uncle, on your stepsister's side, and all of a sudden these people are coming out of the woodworks. I think their own agenda is exactly that, their own agenda. The ability for them to watch out for somebody's best interest is not them. They're looking out for themselves. They're wondering what they can get from this person. We were talking about MC Hammer and how that happened to him, and then there's so many other examples of players who basically allow themselves, because they're not educated, to be taken advantage of. It's sad to know these types of things happen. It's sad to know it even exists. But lo and behold, it does. 9 times out of 10, these young men and women will enter the next level without understanding what it takes, or at least have a insurmountable amount of people that they trust. 9 times out of 10, you don't really want that. You don't want 5 or 6 trusted advisors. You really just want 1, maybe 2. But when I look at something like nationaldiversified.com, which is something that you're a part of, which is a part of a bigger picture, which is the billionaire lifestyle, I really look at this and say, man, this is fantastic. Who does this not apply to? We could take this outside of the scope of being a sports athlete, but because that would be the topic, obviously, because these guys make millions upon billions of dollars throughout their short professional career. And I think it stands to reason as to why they're getting paid so much, because the lifespan of the NFL is maybe 12 years, if you're fortunate, and that's all codependent on injury history. It's dependent on whether or not your respective position allows you to play that long. Quarterbacks don't have that much of a long lifespan because they're the target. They're the ones that are getting hit and battered or broken. It makes me think of Ben Roethlisberger. He has his nose broken, his shoulder, both his knees. There's been multiple surgeries, but I guarantee you that somebody such as Ben Roethlisberger, use just him as an example, understands and has received knowledge in advance to disallow others from taking advantage of him, because he already knows what he needs to do. And he's already putting the wheels in position to do so. Now, if you go retro, and if you want to talk about this retrospectively, Gordon, he did not have that mindset. He was young. He got a motorcycle accident. He was doing very inappropriate things without wearing a helmet on a motorcycle, and the list goes on. But somehow along the way, somebody that he trusted, somebody that he felt that he can communicate with on a very personal level as well as a professional level, because you can't involve, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't involve too much personal conversations with somebody that you trust with your finances, because at that point, you're giving them tools and weaponry, and I call it weaponry because that's really what it is, a set of weapons to give you the long term to really attack you where it counts, to say, well, if you don't do this, I have this on you. So I suggest you do what I'm telling you to do, and then there goes the quid pro quo type conversation, which obviously you want to stay away from. What are these?
Well, let me share something with you, Rudy, that I think will be very helpful to anyone listening who's coming up through a sports career. And the question that you asked is, well, look, absent billionaire lifestyles and this machinery and this apparatus that we've put together here, if let's say I'm a sports figure and I'm coming up through the sports, and where do I go to get this information? How do I find somebody who's less likely to take advantage of me? And I'm going to give you probably someone who could be a key person in helping you to identify that person. Almost everybody who goes into the sports world has a sports agent. And somewhere along the line, whether they're in high school or college, there's people trying to recruit them into the different teams. They're being contacted by sports agents saying, look, I can get you a better contract than if you either go it alone, or if you go with the ABC sports agent or the CBQ sports agent, come with me because I can get you a better contract. And at some point, the athlete selects one of them to be his agent, and the agent is now negotiating with the league or negotiating with the teams to get them the contract that gets them the high incomes that they're looking for. So almost everyone ends up being served by a sports agent. As I've been really getting involved in the sports world, what I found is that 90% of the sports agents, the ones who are bigger, not the ones who just have one or two clients, the ones who have the roster of 100, 120, 150 pro athletes that are on their roster, the vast majority of them have a fairly high degree of integrity. And in fact, many of them are absolutely disgusted with the fact that here they negotiate these really great contracts for their athletes, only to find out that these guys are abused and misused and the money disappears. I mean, think how frustrating that is for them. So a lot of them are motivated to see a system in place that helps these young men and women to overcome that. In fact, the biggest referrers of athletes into our system now are coming from sports agents because they see our ability to help the athlete. But the reason I'm saying this is that let's say somebody doesn't encounter billionaire lifestyles, and they're asking themselves, well, how do I minimize the chances of me being taken advantage of? I would take the time to have a meeting with my sports agent, and I would tell them, look, I know you negotiated this great contract for me, and I don't want to lose this money. I want to be able to live nicely from the money that I'm getting. I want to have a financial security somewhere in my life. I want people managing my money who have integrity and will take good care of me and work with me in a very positive and productive way. Who, in your experience, have served their athlete clients well in money management or in investment management? They may be reluctant at first to recommend somebody because we all say, well, gee, if we recommend somebody, we're sort of endorsing them. And then if anything bad happens, it comes back and reflects on me. But if you're sitting down with them in a nice, quiet, reserved place someplace, and it's just mano a mano, just you and them talking, the chances are pretty good they'll give you the name of somebody who is a business manager or an investment manager who can help you in those areas, who's at least less likely to take advantage of you, because these are guys, they know the guys out there, they know who does what, they know who's been good for the clients that they've had in the past. And so that's a referral that I would be inclined to want to follow up on. But absent that kind of a relationship-based referral, you've got a challenge. And the reason I use the word relationship-based is if I'm a business manager and a sports agent is referring people to me for that service, I don't dare screw up. Because if I did, I would cut off the source of the business of that business that's being referred to me. So now you've got a point of leverage with respect to the person who is serving you. If it's a person who is not connected to any other source of business like that, then if they take advantage of you, there's no recourse that you have, number one, and there's no incentive not to. What doesn't cost them anything to take advantage of you? It's almost like an anonymous person who's taking care of you, and if they screw up, nobody knows and nobody cares. So you want somebody that comes to you through some form of relationship base, where that relationship has enough importance to them that they are now going to take good care of you.
Well, that's what it's about. And look, when I was talking about relational things, we're talking relational as in what and how money relates to them individually. Not every single player is going to make the same amount in every single league. It doesn't happen that way. So to your point, Gordon, when you're talking about understanding monetary management and being able to adapt and to create that separation, you were talking earlier in relation to family members, and I think there's some type of ecosystem that needs to be put in place, and every player out there needs to be aware of this. This isn't something that automatically, autonomously decided to creep its ugly head. This has been going on since the beginning of time. Greed is not something that we don't know about. It's not.
Yeah.
And
it's in the Bible, man. There's been 5,000 years of human history behind it. So, yeah, it's absolutely the case, Rudy. And you mentioned the word ecosystem, and I like that word because that's what Billionaire Lifestyles is. It's an ecosystem where all the parts are interdependent upon each other. They're all harmonized with one another. They're conditioned to working together. It's a collaborative enterprise in the sense of it takes the best of people, brings them together in an organized and systematic way that's designed to produce this type of a result for the athlete. And the advantage of an ecosystem is that there's nobody that's flying solo in our system. So it means that they're all accountable to each other. Nobody screws up because it screws up the whole system, and no one wouldn't be tolerated. So the ecosystem serves as a protector in a way that you don't have when you're dealing with people one at a time, and where there is no recourse to them, or there is no consequence to them if they misbehave. In an ecosystem like this, there's a consequence to misbehavior. And so nobody does, because the consequence is too serious. The consequence is the expulsion from the ecosystem. And so that would be unthinkable for anybody whose business is very deeply connected to that ecosystem. So you have all of that working for you and as opposed to against you. And it's part of the reason why we created this. Now, one of the things that we haven't even talked about, Rudy, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I've been called a lot worse. That's all right. That's all right.
All right. But Rudy, one of the things that reasons that we created Billionaire Lifestyles was not only for the asset protection, the ability to invest, the ability to create more wealth, creating means through endorsements and all the things that create more wealth. There's also the idea that you spend your money as well. And if you're a solo athlete and you're making a lot of money, and you decide, gee, I want to own a yacht, I want to own a jet, I want to own a Bugatti, I want to have a really nice, expensive recreational property where I can go relax and spend my leisure time and enjoy the scenery or wherever it is that this recreational property, high-end recreational property is. All of those things are major, major investments and require not only the money to buy them, but then the money to maintain them. I mean, if you buy a yacht, you're in the shipping business. You got to have a crew, and they got to be full-time. They got to take care of that boat whether you're there or not. That has to be berthed, and it's very expensive. You buy it, and you got to register it. You got to know what country you're going to register it in, because there are labor laws that determine what's going to happen to your crew and what work rules and compensation you have to pay them. If you get the boat has to be retrofitted. Where do you take that? And if it has to be remodeled or maintained in any way, that gets very, very expensive. You got to load it with fuel. These ships hold like 20,000 gallons, of fuel. So it gets very expensive to maintain and to operate these things. And so the question is not only buying it, but then maintaining it. So you either have to have way more money than any athlete is going to make, frankly, or you have to be one of the very, literally a dozen top athletes in the world who's making $100 million a year through your endorsements and your fees and your compensation, base compensation. Okay, but what we do is we bring that lifestyle right down to an affordable way that a successful athlete can afford them. And we do that through fractional ownership. So, for example, we put together a fractional ownership program where a group of athletes together will own the yacht, the high-end real estate, the Bugatti, the jet, and you have access to it. Okay, now, the question is, when do you use these things? Well, you don't use them in your on-season because you're busy engaged in your sport. You use them during your off-season. So if we combine into these packages of these fractional ownerships of these things, people who are in baseball, hockey, football, baseball, they all have seasons which are counter to each other. So now we can give somebody who's part of that program phenomenal amount of usage on those items because they all don't need them at the same time. And so by spreading the usage out around the year by the people who are in their off season having the prime time for those, a person is getting literally 90 to 95% of the time that they would want to use these assets. They're available to them, and they're paying a fraction of the cost to acquire them, maintain them, manage them, and make them really convenient to own and have available to them. And one point I want to make here. Owning an asset is something I don't like doing. I don't like owning assets like yachts and jets. You know why? Because I got to worry about, where is this jet? Okay, what's happening to it? Was there a storm? Did the storm do any damage to this thing? Do I have to go out and look at it to make sure that it's going to get repaired properly? Thousands of things happen to assets. The only kind of assets I want to own are managed assets, so that there's professional management that knows when I need it, make sure it's ready to go when I need it, that make sure when I come back with it, it's taken care of and put back into mint condition, ready for the next use or trip, and that I don't have to worry about where the crew's coming from, how it's going to get, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff, because otherwise the property becomes a headache to me. I want the property I own to be total convenience. And that's what we build into these fractional ownership programs. So you get the ultimate experience of everything you want to own. It's there for you when you need it. It's fully managed so that you don't have to worry about it. You just use it and enjoy it. And it's there for you when you want it. And all the convenience is there and none of the headache. And that's the best way I know to own assets and enjoy that billionaire lifestyle. So we not only look at it from how do we help protect the assets of that athlete, but how do we help build and create more new wealth, more new income? How do we help effectively and efficiently spend that money for more convenience so that you have the very best of all the things that money can buy? And then we even take it into your post-career, and how do we help you extend that career, buy companies, do different things that give you a career after your sports, so that you never have that period when you're depressed, saying to yourself, oh my God, what do I do now? And take it right into creating multi-generational wealth that is not just there for you and your children today, but it's there for your grandkids, your parents, everybody that needs part of this and is entitled to a part of it, is all taken care of, and it's done with a multi-generational outlook to making it all work. We even do one more thing, and you'll get a kick out of this, Rudy. These guys are heroes in their communities, right? All right, so what happens is, in many of these communities, there's a lot of depressed and underperforming properties and real estate. We have an actual program where we go in, we convert those underperforming properties in the old neighborhoods into wealth centers instead of poverty centers, where we bring to them modern, up-to-date methods of using that space way more efficiently than it's used today, creating an ability of that facility that might even be abandoned to now employ people, work with people, and we use the athlete's part of that to be the hero who's our face in that community, who's helping us assemble the local resources, who's helping us build that project out into something visible that community can enjoy. And so our athletes become a partner of ours in converting poverty centers into wealth centers, and helping us change the mindset of the people who live in those communities, because they start seeing wealth occurring. They start seeing good things happening. They start seeing people becoming employed. They start seeing themselves having opportunities now that they would never have had this not transpired. You know, we can have government programs that give away assets, give away money to poor people, and, you know, and they stay poor. But if you go in and you start creating a change in people's mindset, they start seeing a path for themselves to go down that can lead to employment, that can lead to better jobs, that can lead to a better career, that can lead to wealth creation for themselves. Life is changed by that. And that's where you really win the hearts and minds of the people who right now suffer in those communities. And so we view our athlete partners as very important partners of ours in bringing this to those communities as well.
We're talking about giving back to communities, and a lot of times NFL teams, while you're an NFL athlete, and unless you don't know this and you're not an athlete, you would not suspect that every team in the NFL, and use them as an example, will sign all these players on to give back to a certain part in the community for which they play. They have every reason to. They have fans cheering for them. They have, you know, people supporting them, from, you know, rah-rahs in the stands to people as a part of the local city who adorns you when you walk into their establishment. All of those things accumulatively have everything to do with why they give back. And every NFL team has its laundry list of contributions that they can make, whether it's children suffering in a permanent home with cancer, or giving back to a local Red Cross. There's all types of ways to give back. You don't have to be an athlete to do that. But once you are an athlete, people do look up to you. And you have to be mindful, not only, and I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into this, Gordon, because I think a lot of athletes need to know this. Your Twitter line, your social media, all of that is designed to help you. But if you sabotage yourself, you're doing just that. You are sabotaging yourself, meaning that you're taking away from your marketability once you exit your respective profession in the sports industry. It's simple. It's a no-brainer. Guys like Tony Romo retired from being a Dallas Cowboy because no team really wanted to pick up the option on him. Now works for Fox Sports. Whether or not he's going to stay there is all dependent on what he does at this point in his career. He holds records, franchise records for touchdowns and yards passed and all of that for the Dallas Cowboys. But what's interesting about that is it doesn't matter now. All that is for naught. But it's how he marketed himself, enabling him to have this position he can now go to. So now he's supplementing his income, and I guarantee you Tony Romo is no dummy. He put millions of dollars away, and I was reading an article about this. He stashed millions upon millions of dollars away. Why? Because he trusted people like you probably would, Gordon. And when I look at the lack of understanding by these athletes, you really can't claim ignorance on this unless you purely just don't care. And all you're doing is playing for the moment, and you expect to be, you want to play the ignorant role, go ahead. But if you're a professional athlete, you have to take this seriously. If you want to create money after your career and doing something else, why not start while you're playing? That goes back to the opening topic, and actually part of the topic today, at least in this part one series, when we're talking about learning while you're earning. Where do these guys go acquire this information? Is there any type of support system? Is there something that the NFL gets passed out? I mean, if not, the NFL should certainly be aware of something like this. How do athletes know where to go to find this fantastic program that we're talking about here today on the Rude Dog Show?
Well, for one thing, you've already told them they can go to nationaldiversified.com. All our contact information is there. They can just call us, tell us. But the chances are pretty good over the next couple of years that they're going to be approached by a sports agent, by other athletes that they know who are already in the program, and they're going to tell them, look, you got to get into this. This is incredible. So they're going to be hearing about this. There'll be a lot of buzz on this in the next couple of years. So it won't be submerged. It'll be out there. So that's one way that it's going to happen. One other thing that I wanted to tell, or two other things I wanted to tell you. Okay, one is we don't just stop with all the things I've mentioned so far. Our program is literally built around 360 degrees of an athlete's life, every stage of where they're coming from, where they are, and where they're going to. For example, one of our partners in Billionaire Lifestyles is the Champions League. Now, right now, they're only in basketball. They've got 26 franchises set up that parallel all the cities that the NBA is in. And so they're only in basketball, and they have 6 of the teams, or 7 now, I haven't heard the latest number, that are actually up playing each other. And the people that they recruit into these teams are the stars from the NBA when they get cut from their teams. As you know, you can get cut from the NBA and still have 2 or 3 or 4 really great years of playing still ahead of you. But the reason they cut you is because they have budgets. They have limits to how many players they can carry on their roster. They have to make room for the up-and-coming stars. And so when you get towards the tail end of your career, even though you've got a lot of good years of playing left in you, you get cut. And your income goes from millions a year down to nothing. What the Champions League does is it then recruits these folks into the Champions League. The same cities that they have NBA franchises, these teams now play each other. Their people go from now millions a year down to $1 million or $2 million a year. So there's a cut in pay, but they're still in the sport. They're still active. They still get the hero recognition that they have learned to enjoy. They're earning decent money instead of phenomenal money. And we're still working with them on their endorsements and all the other things that keep bringing more income into them. And they've avoided for several more years that period of depression when they say, okay, now what do I do? So we start with that career extension, and that also gives us more time to help them to acquire businesses, to do the things that once they leave the final stage of the sport, they now have something that's related to what they love and they're passionate about, a business that they have equity in. And that's a key word for everybody that's listening to this call, because you can earn great income, but if you're not building equity, then your income stops when you stop working. Okay, equity is what allows you to have ownership in something that produces income after you stop working. So it's no longer because you work that you earn money, it's because you have equity, you have ownership in something that's income producing, that goes on producing income for you after you stop working. So the idea is for us to help them develop equity and ownership into these businesses that can benefit by their being part of it, or owning all of it, in fact, and we let them go into the future with a true sense of purpose in life, a sense of importance, a sense of viability, a sense of respect from their families and from their community, and never having to face that period of depression because they just simply don't know what to do with their life at this point in time. And anybody who knows, by the way, somebody who's gone through this in the sports world has known that you could be at the top of your league, the top of your team, the top of everything. Okay, and now you get cut, and all of a sudden, you're depressed. You don't have a sense of purpose, a sense of energy, and it's devastating to some people. Well, we don't let that happen. We make sure that everybody that's coming through our process has all along the way been building towards that day when they're no longer involved in the sport. So the day that they exit, it's like that. This is just simply the time. I'm making the shift, and I know exactly what I'm doing. In fact, it's usually now taking on more time for something they've been spending some time on, even getting to that point of leaving the sport itself. So life is not a destination. Life is a journey, and it takes us through many depots, many stations, and we're different at every one of those stations. Our needs are different, our abilities are different, what's important to us are different, and it only makes sense to spend a little bit of our time thinking about what our future really holds for us, and how do we, with relatively little effort now, make the adjustments and assign the priorities that enable our future to unfold in a totally positive and totally magnificent way, as opposed to allowing stuff to just happen to us, which is sometimes not necessarily too good. If you see where I'm coming from with that, it's worth it's worth a little bit of thinking time on everybody's part to just kind of look into the future. Rudy, when I was a kid, I would look at older people. By older people, I'm saying I'm a kid, they're 30, right? And, I would ask myself, how did they get to be that? I could never see myself being that. I could always see like that's another person. It's another race. It's another species. And I never saw myself as being a 30-year-old or being a 50-year-old or being a 70-year-old. I never saw myself as those things when I was young. And you tend to be who you are right at that moment. You live in the present. There's only the wonderful now. You feel like you're invincible. You feel like nothing is ever going to be a problem for you. You tend to be very positive, very upbeat. But life is this very long journey. And you will be all the things that you see people at those various ages in front of you. You will be all of them before your journey is over. And it only pays to take a little bit of time and say, well, when I get there, how's life going to go for me? And is there anything I can do now to make life there a whole lot more pleasant for me than a lot of the people I see at that age now? It only makes sense, and with a little bit of planning and involving yourself in a great ecosystem like this, you're taking control of that process and you're making sure that your future is going to be well-founded.
Absolutely. You've probably said it for 90% of people who are listening right now, because you're right. Life is a journey. Look, I'm 43. I'll be 44. I'm not 70. And you don't even sound 70, Gordon, so I just wanted to throw that out there real quick there.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm 73, and I don't feel it either. But there are times when I get up in the morning, and I know exactly how old I am. So
it's interesting. You say you're 73, and that's the year I was born. So you say 73, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's something up there. But look, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you tune into this. This is really important things. Look, this gentleman has lived a long time. What better person to get the information from than Gordon Bizar? This guy has been there, done that. He was selling carpet by the age of 16. Now does so many things for nationaldiversified.com and for sports athletes. But this can also apply to the non-sport athletes as well. We'll get into that a little bit more in part 2. But, Gordon, I look forward to part 2 here. Thank you so much for taking your time out this afternoon to talk about it. It's a very important issue. I don't know that it's being discussed in any other capacity anywhere else, but I certainly appreciate your time.
Well, Rudy, it's been my pleasure, and I'm really looking forward to these upcoming sessions that we'll have together, because there's a lot of really great areas that we can explore. Not everybody's a sports pro, right? So there's lots of other people on the planet besides professional athletes. And no matter who you are, no matter what your background, no matter where you come from, no matter what your past, your future can be brilliant. Okay? It's just a question of know-how. It's a question of knowing the right information. And to some extent, it's a matter of having the right contacts. Because if you're locked away in some remote area and you can't reach out to other people, see, life is about leveraging yourself through other people, and not in a greedy way, but in a compatible way with where they are, where you're really working together to produce something that neither one of you can produce alone. And the beauty of the internet, the beauty of the world we live in today, the beauty of today's technology is I am no longer confined to a neighborhood geographically. I can reach out and harmonize with compatible thinkers all over the world through the internet. And so there's no excuse for saying you're confined. There's no excuse for saying I don't have the contacts. There's no excuse for saying I don't have the information. Today's technology puts it at your fingertips. And one of the things we'll talk about going forward, Randy, is not just about pro athletes, but about everybody and how they can use the world we live in today's resources to propel themselves to any level of success they choose.
Like I said, you can call me anything you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. This is Rudy Reyes on the Root Talk Show. Gordon, thank you. I do appreciate it. And look forward to getting more information. Everybody wants to know a little bit more about this. We're going to dive deep. I don't know how many parts we're going to go into, but the more the merrier, at least in my humble opinion. And I want to leave with this. And we were talking about this as well, Gordon, in that there are at least 3 P's. There could be 4, but there are 3 P's that I live by: passion, perseverance, and having nothing but pure, unadulterated attitudes, so you can move forward. You can be something more than what you are, because you are more than what you appear to be, not only to yourself, but to everybody else. So I appreciate that, and I thank you for absolutely everything, Gordon. It's been enlightening, and I look forward to part 2 a lot sooner than later. And again, I thank you for your time. I guess Gordon is found his way out of the building.
No. I had to stop myself because my alarm went off here for another meeting that I have to attend.
Oh, no. Well, there you go. We all have to have an alarm.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to thank you for this interview today. You're one of the best interviewers I've ever worked with. You have a way of just absolutely eliciting from me as your guest the very best responses I'm capable of, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'm humbled. Look, I don't get shy a whole lot, but this is certainly a humbling experience. Gordon, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, go check out nationaldiversified.com. Gordon Bizar is nothing short of bizarre from his humble beginnings to where he's at right now, and how he wants to help sports athletes get and stay at the next level after their professional career with so much information. And there's so much. Thank you again, Gordon. We're going to have part 2 next Monday, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Again, thank you, Gordon. We'll speak to you next week at the same time.
Thank you, Rudy.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, this is Rudy Reyes of the Rude Dog Show.com, and again, look forward to me being at the ESPYs. Make sure you check it out. I will be there basically all day from approximately 12 p.m. till maybe 7, 8 o'clock at night. So it's going to be a long day for me, but it's going to be fantastic. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show.com.